both of us together will have a lot of similarity with the agriculture systems and farmer systems in more particular across the continents, in particular the African and the Asian nations, where agriculture continues to be dominant and will continue to be dominant. When I looked at your agriculture policy, particularly with reference to the challenges and issues, I find there's so much that all of us are talking about, whether it's Africa or India or other Asian nations, we're talking about similar problems. We're talking about the need to ensure food security, necessity to negotiate the challenges that come from the climate change and the climate vagaries, necessity to increase productivity and save land and transfer that to competing alternate demands like manufacturing sector, industrial sector, service sector. And of course, I also saw that you are worried about the younger generation moving away from agriculture, declining incomes of your farmers. These are problems that are confronting not just these continents, but the entire world today. How do we therefore ensure that agriculture continues to be not just a producer of food and food security for the people of the countries, but more importantly, how does it ensure that the farmers are able to generate profits? So that brings me to one particular point that both of us today should not be just talking about the agricultural growth. What we should be talking about as an agricultural enterprise that is able to generate gainful employment for the farmers and anyone else who depends on agriculture. And simultaneously, it's also able to generate sustainable incomes. Employment and incomes are the two key factors in any enterprise, whether it is manufacturing or service or agriculture. Since agriculture in the 21st century will continue to hold sway in all these countries, and employment is of concern, increasing the per capita income is of concern, we should be reorienting our agriculture system to produce gainful employment and profitable incomes so that they become the incentive for people to stay in agriculture and practice it as a profession and not as a default occupation. And that, of course, necessarily brings us to the issue of how do we deploy science, technology in improving the efficiency and effectiveness of agriculture. How do we practice agriculture as an agricultural enterprise? How do we convert our farmers into agri entrepreneurs? That's the basic issue. And there's no gainsaying that if we want higher efficiency and effectiveness, particularly in agriculture, beset as it is by a number of risks from one end to another, we should be relying more and more on science, technology, and modern business management principles. And if we want this to happen, we need to look at not only at the hard science or the physical science and the applied science that generates therefrom, we should be now depending more on or parallelly on the digital technology. Because digital technology is something that helps us to reach out to the entire expanse of our geography as well as the people at accurate level in as real time as possible, and then helps us to negotiate all challenges that beset agriculture as an agricultural value system. And today we are supposed to talk about the international experiences, more particularly the Indian experiences in terms of electronically driven agriculture system or e-agriculture. I was going through your own e-agriculture policy document. It is a well-written document. It encompasses the current status and it suggests or proposes what should be done. And I can assure you that if you are able to do all that is written there, you would have taken a milestone progress in bringing or imparting efficiency to agriculture of Sri Lanka, because your objective is to achieve food security, reduce the dependence on imports, and thereby save the foreign exchange. You want to increase productivity. You want to have safe and secure food, quality food. Simultaneously, you want to export. And if we want to do all these things, we therefore need to focus not just on quantity, but also quality. Because quality alone will ensure that we're able to integrate our agriculture produce into the marketing system, whether it's domestic and also international markets. And that calls for adhering to international and domestic standards in a harmonized manner. All these things will call for a precision agriculture. That means we are trying to be as precise as possible in the way we produce, in the way we harvest, in the way we process, in the way we sell. And that kind of a precision agriculture naturally calls for deploying digital technology. Now, as all of you are aware, that when we talk about digital technology, over the last 30 years, or more particularly over the last 20 years, the globe has moved from analog to digital technology platforms. When we talk about digital technology platform, more commonly we call it as ICT, as a system of application, information, communication, and technology. And ICT, of course, is a cafeteria of different tools and devices supported by appropriate networks. We have had, of course, as you know, the simple radio, telegraph, we have got the television, and then we have had the internet, which has actually opened a Pandora's box in a positive sense, of course, which makes it possible for us to develop a large number of applications and weave an internet, a web of internet from one location to another location across the country and across the globe, and therefore access new information. But then we also need the emerging technologies as represented by the Internet of Things and Web of Things. And then, of course, the other technologies consisting of the satellite imageries, the remote sensing. The remote sensing could also be, apart from satellites, the drones. It could be the localized sensors at a very specific location. And then, of course, geo-positioning systems, all supported by data collection, data collation, data analytics, and then the use of the big data analytics so that we're able to make a sense of the mass of data. So if these are all the tools and devices, we will certainly require a very strong broadband network. And that is a challenge all the time, that we may have a very good broadband network, but then we may be having problems with the last mile connectivity. So we need to ensure how the last mile connectivity also becomes as effective and efficient as possible. So if we are able to develop this entire cafeteria of tools, devices, networks, infrastructure, two important things that will still be required is how do we ensure that our people become electronic illiterate, and then they are having access to these devices. And the nature of devices, what is going to determine the way we'll be able to reach out to this farming community. As you know, one can start, of course, with a very simple basic phone, which will enable us to have simple text messaging or voice calls. And most people in Sri Lanka today have that basic phone access. But then if we want a more effective transformation and transmission of information, more interactive, then we need to ensure that people have access to smartphones, which then enables for us to have and provide them access to web portals, web services, and many other features which are already available, which will be available on the infrastructure. That means if we have the broadband infrastructure, internet infrastructure that is supporting it, then naturally the farmers will be able to access the portals and other web services directly on their internets and the computers, laptops, iPads, etc. So in a sense that these three basic things, the basic phones, the smartphone, and the internet infrastructure are what will be the primary requirement to see how we are able to reach out to the people. But then many farmers today, and for some more time to come, may not be very comfortable with only this system. As you know, even our agriculture extension teaches us that when we have a human interface, then the credibility of the information is higher, or it enables them to have clarities on the doubts that we generate from a particular information. Hence, the direct calls, a call center, for example, as you have, or what we in India call the Kisan call center, which enables people to interact in the local language and get clarity and develop credibility. So all these things will actually be very important for us. Now, friends, let us look if we are able to put all these things in place. And of course, we'll talk about some challenges to having this and using this qualitatively at the end. Once we are able to ensure that these things are there, how do we now take care of deploying these things at different segments of the agriculture value system? Yeah, I think that's a good question, and it is a really a common challenge in most of our countries. In India, too, not everybody has a smartphone. The number of mobile sets, of course, has gone by leaps and bounds. Now, the smartphones is around 60%. It is safe to presume that every farm family has got at least one phone, either a basic or a smartphone, and the smartphone percentage stands at around 60%, if my memory serves me right. So, one is, of course, to see how everybody can afford a smartphone. And I'm sure, in a period of time, governments will have to start seeing how to cater to this requirement. To draw one parallel example, during the corona time, as you know, when the schools and colleges got closed and education was being delivered online, many children of the poor families who don't have access to laptop or a smartphone were missing the classes. But what we see now, the state governments have begun to respond. That many state governments saying, "I will provide a free laptop or a smartphone to these children." So that means the governments will start responding. However, not, I mean, that's a good thing if it can happen. What one way is to, as we discussed, you can have a smartphone or you can have a web infrastructure. That means people have access to the desktops or a laptop. Now, everybody can't naturally afford that. If they can't afford a smartphone, they certainly can't afford a laptop. So now, every village we should try to develop a terminal. Like what we have got is common service centers or citizen service centers. Now, under these citizen service centers, it is either a government service or it is once again a private public model or it is a private enterprise model. That means, let us say one private entrepreneur like a youth sets up his terminal at a village. He is allowed to collect revenues. Like say our land documents are today available through that common service center. Earlier, he had to go, for example, to the revenue inspector. No, now he doesn't have to. He just goes to that common service center, gives his data, and is able to generate the land record. So now that same common service center can actually start giving all this basic information to the farmers, whether they want to apply for some particular entitlement or they want to get information. So I would suggest, in fact, that's what we've written in our volumes also, in the extension chapter volume, that promote large number of common service centers in the village through with the youth, where they can also become agriculture extension outlets. A lot of repetitive data, which is to be broadcast to the people, can all be made available to that service sector. It can be at the local village government, like our Gram Panchayats in India. You'll be having that village council there. So either the village council can house this, or a private entrepreneur can start a business, or the local agriculture office can have this thing. So I would say that till such time as everybody is able to access smartphones and also learn how to use that, because they may have a smartphone but they may not know how to use it. So I think it is good to have these common service centers which become omnibus service providers, not only for agriculture but for others, because if they would become revenue efficient, after all, if it is a private enterprise, he will do it provided he is able to generate enough revenue to run that. So he should be able to allowed to deal with land records, with agriculture services, all kinds of services, welfare services, etc. So that it becomes a revenue model. Kerala is in Kerala state in India is a very successful example of how the local governments are running these centers, the private entrepreneurs are running these things, and they have been able to really run it for long many years now. Maybe you could like to have to look at that stuff. That's a model. Thank you.
Thank you